The winter feast was meant to be a night of celebration, but for Seren, it became the night she was left to die. She had been a maid in the Valdrin pack for 3 brutal years. 3 years of silence, of hiding, of scrubbing floors and swallowing the cruelty of those who saw her as less than nothing. No one knew who she truly was. No one knew about the pack that had burned, the mate she had lost, or the gift sleeping inside her that had painted a target on her back since birth. She kept her head down. She never complained. She survived. Until someone decided surviving was no longer permitted. They dragged her into the snow while the feast roared inside the great hall. They stripped her of her coat, her shoes, and left her in the frozen dark where the forest swallowed screams. Seren felt the cold seeping into her bones and thought, "This is how it ends. Alone. Forgotten. Just like my pack." Then footsteps crunched through the snow. Alpha King Kyle of Valdrin stood over her broken body, and something in him shattered. His roar of fury split the night, shaking the trees, sending wolves cowering for miles. The most powerful Alpha in 5 kingdoms cradled a nameless maid in his arms, and his eyes held murder. No one understood why. Not the nobles who watched him carry her inside. Not the servants who saw him refuse to let healers take her from his arms. Not even Seren herself, who woke days later in silken sheets with a king standing guard at her door. Neither of them understood what her survival would awaken. The great hall of Valdrin blazed with firelight and laughter, 100 voices rising in celebration of the winter feast. Crystal chandeliers cast dancing shadows across walls draped in evergreen and silver. The scent of roasted venison and spiced wine filled the air, thick and intoxicating. Seren smelled none of it. She knelt in the servants' corridor behind the kitchens, scrubbing a stone floor that would only be dirtied again within the hour. Her knees ached against the cold ground. Her fingers were raw, cracked from lye soap and endless water. But she kept her head down and worked, because that was what invisible people did. "Faster, girl." The head housekeeper, a severe woman named Dagny, kicked the bucket beside Seren's hand, sloshing gray water across the freshly cleaned stones. "The Alpha's guests will pass through here. If I see a single stain, you'll sleep outside tonight." Seren didn't look up. "Yes, ma'am." Dagny lingered, waiting for defiance that never came. After a moment, she made a sound of disgust and swept away, her keys jangling at her hip like a jailer's song. Alone again, Seren let out a slow breath. Her hands trembled, but not from the cold. From memory. 3 years. 3 years since the night Ashenmoor burned. 3 years since she had watched her entire pack slaughtered while flames painted the sky orange and screams filled her ears. 3 years since Turin, her mate, had shoved her into the escape tunnel and turned back to fight, his final words echoing in her skull. "Live, Seren. Whatever it takes. Live." She had lived. But sometimes she wondered if survival was just another form of death. The mark on her shoulder blade burned faintly, as it always did when she thought of him. A mate mark from a bond severed by death. It should have faded. It hadn't. The healers at Ashenmoor had called it impossible. The wolf who had hunted her after the massacre had called it valuable. Seren called it a curse. She finished the floor and gathered her supplies, moving silently through the servants' passages. The feast thundered above her, a world of silk and jewels and wolves who had never known hunger. She caught glimpses through doorways. Nobles dancing, warriors drinking, unmated females circling the edges of the crowd like sharks scenting blood. Everyone wanted the Alpha King's attention tonight. Kale of Valdrin, the youngest Alpha to ever unite the 5 mountain packs, the warrior who had ended the border wars with nothing but his blade and his word. They said his wolf was pure white, rare as snowfall in summer. They said his eyes could see through lies. Seren had never looked at his eyes. She had learned long ago that being seen was dangerous. So she moved through Valdrin like a ghost, speaking only when spoken to, keeping her gaze on the ground. The other servants thought her simple. Dagny thought her weak. Only one person suspected the truth. "There you are." The voice came from behind, soft and sweet and utterly poisonous. Seren's blood turned to ice. She turned slowly. Vashti stood in the corridor, her dark hair cascading over bare shoulders, her gown the color of fresh snow. Beautiful, elegant, and smiling with the same warmth she had shown the night Ashenmore fell. "I've been looking for you everywhere," Vashti said. "You missed your assignment. Dagny is furious. I was scrubbing the east corridor." Seren kept her voice flat. "As instructed." "Were you?" Vashti tilted her head, her smile never faltering. "Strange. Dagny seems to think you were hiding, avoiding your duties." She stepped closer, her perfume cloying. "Avoiding me." Seren's wolf stirred, a warning growl building in her chest. She forced it down. "I have no reason to avoid you." "No?" Vashti's fingers brushed Seren's jaw, a mockery of tenderness. "After everything we've been through?" "I'm wounded, little sister." The word was a knife. They had grown up together in Ashenmore, trained together, laughed together. Seren had trusted Vashti with her life, until the night Vashti opened the gates. "The feast needs attending," Seren said, stepping back. "I should go." Vashti caught her wrist. Her grip was iron beneath silk. "You should," she agreed. "But first, a reminder." She leaned close, her lips brushing Seren's ear. "I know what you are. I know what you're hiding. And if you ever think about revealing what happened at Ashenmore, I will finish what I started." She released Seren and glided away, disappearing into the crowd of servants as if the threat had never been spoken. Seren stood frozen, her heart pounded. Her wolf howled for blood, for justice, for the vengeance she had buried for 3 long years. But vengeance required power, and power was something a ghost could never have. She made her way toward the kitchens, her mind racing. Vashti had found her somehow, had tracked her across 3 kingdoms and infiltrated Valdrin, which meant she wanted something. Something beyond Seren's silence. The mate mark on her shoulder burned hotter. "You!" A rough hand seized her arm, one of the guards, his breath reeking of ale. "Dagny wants you outside. Firewood needs hauling." "Now?" Seren glanced toward the windows. Snow fell in thick curtains, the storm that had been building all day finally unleashing its fury. "In this?" The guard shrugged. "Not my problem. Get moving." He shoved her toward the servants' exit. Seren stumbled, catching herself against the doorframe. Behind her she heard laughter, low and feminine and familiar. Vashti. Seren pushed through the door and stepped into the storm. The cold hit her like a physical blow, stealing her breath. She had no coat, no gloves, just her thin servant's dress and the worn shoes that were already soaking through. "Hello?" she called into the swirling white. "Is anyone here?" No answer. Just wind and snow and the growing certainty that she had walked into a trap. She turned to go back inside. The door was locked. Serene pounded on it, screaming, but the storm devoured her voice. Minutes passed. Her fingers went numb, her lips turned blue. She staggered away from the door, searching for another entrance, but the snow was blinding, disorienting. She fell. The cold embraced her like a lover, gentle and final. Seren curled into herself, her thoughts scattering. "So this is how it ends," she thought. "Not with fire, like my pack. With ice." Her eyes fluttered closed. And then footsteps crunched through the snow, and a voice roared with enough fury to crack the sky itself. The world returned in fragments. Warmth. Flickering light. The scent of pine and something deeper. Richer. Like a winter forest after rain. And a heartbeat. Steady and strong, drumming beneath her ear. Seren's eyes flew open. She was being carried, cradled against a chest so broad it blocked the storm entirely. Arms wrapped around her, not gentle but fierce, holding her as if letting go would mean losing her forever. She looked up. Alpha King Kale stared down at her, his pale eyes burning with an emotion she couldn't name. His jaw was clenched, his expression carved from stone. But his hold on her, that was something else entirely. That was desperate. "Stay awake," he commanded. His voice resonated through her bones. "Do you hear me? You will not die tonight." Seren tried to speak, but her lips were frozen, her throat raw. She managed only a weak sound, something between a whimper and a sob. His arms tightened. "I have you." The great hall exploded into chaos as he kicked open the doors. Nobles scattered, servants screamed, warriors reached for weapons before recognizing their king, then froze in confusion at the sight of the broken servant in his arms. "Healer!" Kale's roar shook the chandeliers. "Now!" People moved. Seren watched it happen through dimming vision, faces blurring, voices fading. The only constant was him, his warmth, his heartbeat, the impossible safety of being held by the most powerful alpha alive. Who did this? His question was quiet, but it silenced the room. Who left her outside? No one answered. Kale's wolf surged beneath his skin, his eyes flickering gold. The dominance that poured from him sent every wolf in the hall to their knees, a crushing weight of pure alpha command. "I will ask once more." His voice was barely human. "Who did this?" Still, silence. Serene felt consciousness slipping away, but she forced her frozen fingers to grip his shirt, pulling his attention back to her. "Please," she whispered. "Let me go." Those gold eyes fixed on her face, and something shifted in them. The fury banked, replaced by something almost tender. "Never," he said. Then darkness claimed her. She woke in silk. Seren bolted upright, her heart hammering. The room around her was massive, draped in deep blues and silver, a fire roaring in an enormous hearth. The bed she lay in could have held 6 people. The sheets alone were worth more than her life. "You're awake." She spun toward the voice. Kale sat in a chair beside the bed, still wearing his feast clothes, though the formal jacket had been discarded. His shirt was unlaced at the throat, his hair falling loose around his shoulders. He looked exhausted. He looked like he hadn't slept in days. How long had she been unconscious? 3 days, he said, as if reading her thoughts. "The cold nearly killed you. Another hour and it would have." Seren's throat tightened. "Your Majesty, I don't understand. Why am I here? Why would you? You were dying on my land." His voice was flat. "In my snow. During my feast. That makes it my responsibility." It was a reasonable answer. A kingly answer. So why did it feel like a lie? "I should return to my duties," Seren said, moving to rise. "The other servants will be—" "No." The word cracked through the room like thunder. Seren froze, half out of the bed, her bare feet touching the cold floor. Kyle leaned forward, his elbows on his knees, his silver gaze never leaving her face. "You will not return to your duties. You will not return to the servants' quarters. You will stay in this wing, under my protection, until I discover who tried to murder you." Murder. The word hung between them. "Your Majesty." Seren forced her voice steady. "I'm a servant. These things happen. I'm sure no one intended." The door was barred from the inside. His jaw tightened. "Your coat and shoes were found in the incinerator. Someone planned this." He rose from the chair, towering over her, close enough that she could feel the heat radiating from his body. "Someone wanted you dead. I want to know why." Seren's pulse stuttered. If she told him about Vashti, about Ashenmore, about everything, she would be exposing herself, revealing the disgraced Luna, the accused traitor, the woman with a dead mate's mark still burning on her skin. He would cast her out. Or worse. "I don't know," she lied. His eyes narrowed. For a long moment he simply looked at her, his gaze piercing, assessing. Then he stepped back. "You're lying," he said quietly, "but I won't force the truth from you. Not yet." He moved toward the door. "Rest. Eat. A healer will attend you." "And Seren?" She flinched at her name on his lips. How did he even know it? "If you try to flee," he said without turning, "I will find you. And next time, I won't be so patient." The door closed behind him. Seren sat on the edge of the bed, trembling. Her mind raced through options. She could run. She had survived this long by running. Find a new pack, a new identity, start over again. But something held her here. Something in the way he had carried her through the storm, the way he had refused to let her go, the way he had said, never, as if the word carried the weight of an oath. It terrified her. She looked at the locked door, the guarded windows, the gilded cage she now found herself in, and wondered if running had ever been an option at all. By morning, the entire pack knew. Seren heard the whispers even through the thick walls of the king's wing. A servant, elevated above her station, given rooms meant for visiting nobility, protected by the Alpha himself, for reasons no one could fathom. The speculation was vicious. She must be warming his bed, she heard a maid hiss outside her door. Why else would he care about trash like her? Maybe she's blackmailing him, another suggested. Knows some secret. Look at her. She's nothing, less than nothing. The king's lost his mind. Seren pressed her back against the wall, her eyes closed, letting the cruelty wash over her. She had heard worse, survived worse. Words were just words. But still, they cut. A sharp knock interrupted her spiral. Before she could respond, the door swung open, and a young woman swept in carrying a bundle of fabric. She was perhaps 17, with copper hair and bright green eyes that sparkled with undisguised curiosity. You're awake. Good. I'm Nell, and I've been assigned as your personal attendant. She dumped the fabric on the bed, revealing dresses in deep jewel tones, nothing like the gray servant's garb Seren had worn for years. The king ordered a new wardrobe, said you're not to wear those rags anymore. Seren stared at the dresses. This is a mistake. I'm a maid. I scrub floors. Not anymore, you don't. Nell grinned. Come on, let's get you dressed. His Majesty wants to see you in an hour. What? No, it wasn't a request. Nell's grin softened into something almost sympathetic. Look, I don't know why the king's taken an interest in you, and honestly, neither does anyone else. But refusing him isn't going to make things easier, trust me. Seren let herself be dressed. The gown Nell chose was deep forest green, simple but elegant, and fit her body as if it had been made specifically for her measurements. When she looked in the mirror, she barely recognized herself. For a moment, she looked like the Luna she had once been. Beautiful, Nell breathed. No wonder he... She stopped, flushing. No wonder he what? Seren asked quietly. Nell busied herself with straightening the already straight bedding. Nothing. We should go. The king doesn't like to be kept waiting. The walk through the castle felt like a gauntlet. Every servant they passed stopped to stare. Every noble they encountered regarded Seren with thinly veiled contempt. She kept her eyes forward, her spine straight, drawing on years of training she had thought forgotten. They reached the council chamber, where 2 guards flanked massive oak doors. Nell curtsied and retreated, leaving Seren alone. The doors swung open. Kale sat at the head of a long table, surrounded by advisors and pack elders. He wore black, severe and formal, his crown a simple circlet of silver. The moment Seren entered, every eye turned to her. And every wolf in the room bristled. You summoned the servant to a council meeting? One of the elders, a grizzled man with a scarred face, didn't bother hiding his disgust. Your Majesty, surely there are more appropriate venues for your diversions. Careful, Brennan. Kale's voice was mild, but the temperature in the room dropped. You're speaking about a member of my household? A servant, Brennan pressed. One who appeared out of nowhere 3 years ago with no references, no pack affiliation, and no history. One who someone just tried to kill. Perhaps that someone knew things we don't. Seren felt the accusation land. They thought she was the threat. The infiltrator. The danger. They weren't entirely wrong. Her history is being investigated, Kale said. In the meantime, she is under my protection. Anyone who harms her answers to me. His gaze swept the room. Is that understood? Reluctant nods. resentful silence. Good. Kale rose from his chair. This council is dismissed. Seren, stay. The elders filed out, each one passing her with varying degrees of hostility. Brennan paused at her side, leaning close. I don't know what game you're playing, girl, he murmured. But when the king tires of you, and he will, I'll be waiting. Then he was gone, and she was alone with the Alpha King. Kale didn't speak immediately. He moved to a window overlooking the snow-covered mountains, his back to her. The silence stretched. Sit, he finally said. Seren sat on the edge of the nearest chair, her hands clasped in her lap. Your Majesty, I know this looks improper. The elders are right to question. The elders are fools. He turned to face her, and she was struck again by how beautiful he was. Not soft beauty, but harsh, like a blade catching light. They see a servant and assume the worst. They don't see what I see. And what do you see? The question escaped before she could stop it. Seren cursed inwardly, but Kale's lips curved into something that wasn't quite a smile. Someone who's been hiding for a very long time. He crossed the room, stopping before her chair. Someone who moves like a warrior, not a maid. Someone whose wolf hasn't surfaced once in 3 years, which should be impossible unless she's suppressing it deliberately. Seren's blood ran cold. You're not just a servant, Kale continued quietly. You're something else. Something you don't want anyone to know. He crouched before her, putting them at eye level. This close, she could see flecks of silver in his frost-colored eyes, like stars scattered across winter sky. I've told you I won't force the truth from you. I meant it. But I need you to understand something. What? Her voice was barely a whisper. Someone in my pack wants you dead. His hand came up, hovering near her face but not touching. Until I know why, you stay where I can protect you. That's not negotiable. Seren swallowed hard. His nearness was overwhelming, his scent flooding her senses. Pine and frost and something darker, something that made her wolf stir despite 3 years of silence. Why do you care? She asked. You don't know me. Something flickered in his eyes. Pain? Recognition? It vanished before she could name it. Maybe I don't, he said. Or maybe I've been waiting a very long time for you to stop hiding. Before she could process those words, a commotion erupted outside the doors. Raised voices, the clash of guards moving. Kale straightened, his expression hardening. Wait here. He strode to the doors and yanked them open. Seren caught a glimpse of chaos in the corridor, servants running, a guard shouting, and Vashti, standing amid the confusion with tears streaming down her beautiful face. Your Majesty! She threw herself at Kale's feet. Please, you must help. Someone's been sabotaging the winter feast preparations, and they're blaming me. They're saying Her voice broke into a sob. They're saying I tried to kill that maid? Seren rose from her chair, her wolf finally awakening with a snarl of fury. Kale's eyes cut to her, then back to Vashti. Rise, he commanded. Explain. Vashti rose gracefully, dabbing at her tears. I would never harm anyone, Your Majesty. You know my loyalty. I've served this pack faithfully since I arrived 2 years ago. Her gaze slid to Seren, and beneath the tears, Seren saw the truth. Triumph. Perhaps the real question, Vashti continued sweetly, is why this servant, this stranger, is receiving the king's protection while faithful pack members are accused of crimes we didn't commit. The elders who had been lingering in the corridor nodded in agreement. Even Brennan looked convinced. Kale's expression remained unreadable. The investigation will determine the truth. Of course, Your Majesty. Vashti bowed her head demurely. I only want justice. For all of us. She turned to leave, passing Seren on her way out. And in that moment, screened from everyone else's view, she leaned close and whispered, 3 days. That's how long you have before I bury you with the rest of Ashenmoor. Then she was gone, leaving Seren frozen in place, her heart pounding, her wolf howling for a battle she couldn't fight. Not yet, but soon. The winter feast resumed that evening as if nothing had happened, as if a servant hadn't nearly died in the snow, as if accusations hadn't been hurled, as if the pack wasn't fracturing beneath the surface, tensions coiling tighter with every passing hour. Seren stood before the mirror in her chambers, barely recognizing the woman staring back. Nell had outdone herself tonight. The gown was midnight blue, threaded with silver that caught the candlelight like scattered stars. Her dark hair had been swept up, revealing the slender column of her neck, the delicate line of her jaw. She looked like a Luna. The thought made her stomach clench. "You look stunning," Nell said, adjusting a final pin. "The whole pack will be talking about you." "They're already talking about me?" Serene's voice was flat. "None of it good." "Then give them something else to talk about." Nell met her eyes in the mirror. "Walk in there like you belong. Like you're not afraid of anything. That's what drives people like them crazy. People like them. The nobles, the elders, the wolves who saw weakness and attacked." Seren had spent 3 years making herself invisible to survive. Now the king had thrust her into the light, and every predator in the pack was circling, including Vashti. 3 days. The threat echoed in her mind. 3 days before Vashti made her move. 3 days to figure out how to stop her without exposing everything. A knock at the door made them both turn. Kale stood in the doorway, dressed in formal black, his silver crown gleaming against his pale hair. His winter storm gaze swept over Seren, and something flickered in their depths. Something hot and hungry that vanished before she could name it. "Leave us," he said to Nell. The girl curtsied and fled. Kyle stepped inside, closing the door behind him. The room felt smaller suddenly, the air thicker. Seren's wolf stirred, responding to his presence despite her best efforts to keep it dormant. "You clean up well," he said. The words were casual. His voice was not. "Your Majesty?" "Kale." He moved closer, stopping an arm's length away. "When we're alone, you call me Kale." Seren's throat tightened. "That's not appropriate." "None of this is appropriate." His lips curved, but it wasn't quite a smile. A king obsessed with a servant. A pack on the edge of rebellion. A woman with secrets so deep she'd rather freeze to death than reveal them. He reached out, his fingers brushing a strand of hair from her face. "Nothing about this is appropriate." The touch burned. Seren stepped back, her heart racing. "Why are you doing this? There must be dozens of noble women who would kill for your attention." "Why me?" Something shifted in his expression. The hunger faded, replaced by something older, sadder. "Because when I found you in the snow, my wolf recognized you." The words hit her like a physical blow. "What?" "I don't know how to explain it." His hand dropped to his side, his jaw tightening. "I've spent my entire life controlling my wolf. Suppressing him. I had to. There are reasons. But when I saw you dying, he broke through every barrier I'd built. He wouldn't let me leave you. He won't let me leave you now." Serene's mind reeled. Wolf recognition. It happened sometimes between potential mates, an instinctive pull that preceded the formal bond. But she already had a mate mark, a dead mate's mark that should have made her invisible to any other wolf's instincts. Unless something about her was different. Unless something about him was different. "We should go," Kale said, his voice rougher than before. "The feast awaits." He offered his arm. After a moment's hesitation, Seren took it. The great hall had been transformed since the night she nearly died. More candles blazed, more evergreen draped the walls, and more silver glittered from every surface. The nobility had assembled in their finest, a glittering sea of silk and jewels and barely concealed ambition. Every head turned as they entered. Seren felt the weight of their stares, the whispers that erupted like wildfire. But Kale walked forward without hesitation, and she had no choice but to match his stride. They passed Brennan, whose scarred face contorted with disgust. They passed noble women who looked at Seren with naked hatred. They passed servants who averted their eyes, uncertain how to treat someone who had been one of them hours ago. And they passed Vashti. She stood near the dais, beautiful as a winter rose, her smile serene. But her eyes tracked Seren with predatory focus, and the promise in them was clear. Soon. Kale led Seren to a chair beside the throne, not a servant's position, not a guest's position, a consort's position. The hall erupted in murmurs. Your Majesty. Brennan stepped forward, barely containing his outrage. Surely you don't intend to seat a servant beside the throne during the winter feast. The ritual requires. I know what the ritual requires. Kale's voice cut through the noise like a blade. I also know that someone in this hall tried to murder a member of my household. Until I discover who, she stays where I can see her. But the insult to our traditions is less important than her life. Kale turned to face the crowd, his alpha dominance rolling through the room. Let me be clear. The woman beside me is under my protection. Any threat against her is a threat against me. Any harm done to her will be repaid tenfold. His eyes swept the hall, cold and merciless. Is that understood? Silence. Then, one by one, the wolves bowed their heads in submission. All except Vashti, who merely smiled. The feast proceeded. Food was served, wine was poured, music played. But Seren tasted nothing. She was too aware of the eyes on her, the hostility radiating from every corner of the room, and she was too aware of Kale beside her. He ate little, spoke less, but his hand rested on the arm of his throne, close enough to her chair that she could feel the heat emanating from his skin. Every few minutes, his gaze would slide to her, checking, assessing, as if confirming she was still there. It should have felt suffocating. Instead, it felt safe. Hours passed. The candles burned lower. The crowd grew louder with wine and revelry. And finally, the moment Seren had been dreading arrived. The winter dance, a herald announced. His Majesty will open the dancing with a partner of his choosing. Tradition. The Alpha King always danced the first dance of the winter feast, typically with his Luna or his most favored courtier. Every unmated female in the room straightened, hope flickering in their eyes. Kale rose from his throne and turned to Seren. Dance with me. The hall went dead silent. Seren's heart stopped. Your Majesty, I don't know the steps. Then I'll teach you. He extended his hand, his silver eyes holding hers. Trust me. She shouldn't. She knew she shouldn't. This would paint an even larger target on her back, would fuel every rumor, would make Vashti's job easier. But her hand rose anyway, and her fingers slid into his. He led her to the center of the hall. The musicians began a slow, sweeping melody, and Kyle pulled her close, one hand at her waist, the other holding hers against his chest. Follow my lead, he murmured. And don't look at them. Look at me. She looked at him. They began to move. Seren stumbled at first, unfamiliar with the formal steps, but Kale guided her with gentle pressure, his body directing hers. Slowly, she found the rhythm. Slowly, the watching crowd faded. There was only him. The music swelled. He spun her, caught her, and pulled her closer than protocol allowed. His scent surrounded her, pine and frost and that darker note beneath. His eyes never left her face. You're beautiful, he said quietly. Do you know that? Don't. The word escaped before she could stop it. Don't what? Don't make this harder than it already is. Something flickered in his eyes. You think this is easy for me? His grip on her waist tightened. You think I chose this? I've spent 10 years building walls, Seren. 10 years keeping everyone at a distance. And then you... He stopped, his jaw clenching. Then I what? The music reached its crescendo. Kale dipped her, his face inches from hers, his breath warm against her lips. Then you made me want to tear them all down. The music ended. The crowd erupted in applause, but neither of them moved, frozen in that final position, staring at each other with something that felt far too close to recognition. Then Kale straightened abruptly. Excuse me? His voice was strangled. He released her so quickly she stumbled. I have to. He strode from the hall without looking back. Seren stood alone in the center of the dance floor, surrounded by whispers and stares, her heart pounding with confusion. What just happened? And why did it feel like he was running from her? She found him an hour later. Since the dance, her wolf had been restless, pacing inside her mind, pulling towards something she couldn't name. Now it led her through forgotten corridors to a door she had never seen before. It was heavy oak, reinforced with iron, set into a wall far from the main wings of the castle. No guards stood watch, no servants lingered nearby. The corridor itself was cold, neglected, as if this part of the castle had been deliberately forgotten. Seren pressed her palm against the door. It swung open. Inside was a chamber carved from stone, lit by a single fire burning low in a massive hearth. Weapons lined the walls: swords, axes, spears, all ancient, all gleaming with careful maintenance. And in the center of the room, stripped to the waist, his back to her, stood Kale. She should have announced herself, should have retreated, apologized for intruding. Instead, she stared. He was magnificent. Broad shoulders, tapered waist, muscles carved by years of combat. His pale hair fell loose down his back, silver gold in the firelight. But it wasn't his beauty that stole her breath. It was the marks. They covered his skin like frost patterns, silver white lines that traced his spine, curved over his shoulders, spread across his ribs. They weren't scars. They weren't tattoos. They looked like something had been written on his body in ice, and the writing had never melted. Curse marks. Seren recognized them from her training as Luna. Curse marks appeared when powerful magic bound itself to flesh, when someone had been touched by a hex so deep it left physical traces. She had seen them once before, on a wolf who had been cursed to never shift again. That wolf had died screaming, "You shouldn't be here." Kale's voice was quiet. He hadn't turned, hadn't moved, but somehow he had known. "What are those marks?" Seren's voice shook. "What happened to you?" Silence stretched. Then slowly, Kale turned to face her. The marks continued across his chest, converging over his heart in a pattern that looked almost like a handprint made of ice, pressed directly over the place where his life beat. "Close the door," he said. She closed it. He moved to a chair near the fire, sinking into it with the weariness of someone carrying an impossible weight. For a long moment he simply stared at the flames. "My mother was beautiful," he began quietly. "The most beautiful woman in 5 kingdoms, they said. My father was obsessed with her. Would have burned the world to keep her happy." He paused. "And then she died. When I was 7 years old. An illness, they claimed. But I knew the truth." Seren moved closer, settling into a chair across from him. "What truth?" "She didn't die of illness. She died because my father loved her." His jaw tightened. "There's a curse on my bloodline. It's been there for generations, since an ancestor wronged a powerful witch. The curse is simple. Any wolf the Alpha truly loves will die." Seren's blood ran cold. "My father didn't believe it at first. He thought it was just superstition. But then my mother grew weaker. Then his best friend, the man he loved like a brother. Then my childhood nurse, the woman who raised me after my mother passed." Kyle's voice was flat, reciting facts like a scholar reading from a text. Everyone he loved died, and when he finally understood, he took his own life. "Kale." "I was 15. He looked at her then, and his eyes were ancient. "I became Alpha at 15, with a dead father and a curse I couldn't escape. So I made a choice. I would never love anyone. I would never let anyone close. I would be cold, distant, and untouchable." His lips twisted bitterly. "And for 10 years, it worked." Seren's mind raced. The coldness, the distance, the way everyone spoke of him with fear and reverence but never warmth. It wasn't cruelty. It wasn't arrogance. It was survival. Then why? She stopped, afraid to finish the question. Why you? He laughed, a harsh sound without humor. I don't know. I've asked myself that every moment since I found you in the snow. My wolf recognized you, and he won't let go. Every barrier I built, every wall I constructed, you're tearing through them without even trying. He rose from the chair and moved toward her, his steps slow, deliberate. Seren stood her ground, her heart hammering as he stopped mere inches away. I should send you away, he murmured. I should put you in a carriage tonight and never see you again. That would be the safe thing, the smart thing. Then do it. Her voice was barely a whisper. His hand came up, cupping her jaw with a gentleness that contradicted everything she knew about him. I can't. Why? Because my wolf would hunt you down before you reach the border. His thumb traced her cheekbone, leaving fire in its wake. Because I haven't slept in 3 days from watching your door. Because when I held you in that snowstorm, freezing and dying, something inside me broke, and I don't know how to fix it. Seren's eyes burned. She should tell him the truth. About Ashenmore, about Torin, about the mate mark that still blazed on her shoulder. But his lips brushed her forehead, and every thought scattered. I won't act on this, he said against her skin. I won't risk your life. But I need you to understand why I am the way I am. Why I can never... His voice cracked. Why I can never give you what you deserve. She should have accepted that. Should have been grateful for the boundary. Instead, she rose on her toes and pressed her lips to his. The kiss was soft, brief. A question more than a statement. And when she pulled back, Kale was staring at her with an expression she had never seen before. Hunger, desperation, fear. Seren, I know about curses, she interrupted. I know they seem unbreakable, but I also know that nothing is absolute. There's always a way. Not this curse. Witches have tried. Healers have tried. My father tried for 20 years. Did any of them have a gift like mine? The words escaped before she could stop them. Kale went still. What gift? Seren hesitated. She was revealing too much, risking everything. But seeing those marks on his skin, knowing he had carried this weight alone for a decade, she couldn't stay silent. I was born with a healing gift, she said quietly. It's rare, powerful, the kind of power that made my old pack a target. She touched the marks on his chest, and he flinched as if her fingers burned. I've never used it fully. I've never been trained properly. But I feel it in me, and I feel it responding to these marks. Responding how? Like it wants to erase them. The fire crackled. The shadows danced. And Kale looked at her with something that might have been hope. Don't. His voice was ragged. Don't give me hope. It's more dangerous than the curse. Maybe. She didn't move her hand from his chest. Or maybe hope is exactly what breaks it. He caught her wrist, but didn't pull her away. His grip was trembling. You don't know what you're offering. Then show me. For a long moment he simply held her wrist, his pulse racing against her fingers. Then slowly, carefully, as if approaching something fragile and precious, he lowered his head. This kiss was different. It wasn't soft. It wasn't questioning. It was claiming. His mouth moved against hers with 10 years of suppressed hunger, his arms wrapping around her, pulling her against his bare chest until she could feel those frost marks burning against her skin. And beneath them, something stirred. Her gift. Awakening. It rose inside her like a tide, warm and golden, reaching toward the cold places in him. She felt the curse recoil, felt it fight against her instinctive magic. And she felt something else. A connection forming. Not a mate bond, not quite, but something deeper. Something that linked her wolf to his, her heartbeat to his, her very soul to his. It was terrifying. It was inevitable. Kale pulled back, gasping. His eyes were wide, his pupils blown. What was that? What did you... Serene's legs buckled. The expenditure of power she hadn't even consciously summoned had drained something vital. Kale caught her before she hit the ground, lifting her into his arms. Seren? Seren? Her vision blurred. But before darkness claimed her, she managed 2 words. The marks. Kale looked down at his chest. The frost patterns had faded. Not disappeared, but retreated. The silver lines thinner and less defined than they had been moments ago. For the first time in 10 years, warmth spread through his skin. 2 days passed. 2 days of Seren recovering her strength, of healers checking her vitals, of Nell bringing endless trays of food. 2 days of Kale appearing at her door every morning and every night, his pale eyes searching her face with something that looked disturbingly like devotion. And 1 day, left before Vashti's deadline expired. Seren sat in the castle library, surrounded by ancient texts, searching for answers, about curses, about healing gifts, about the connection she had felt forming between herself and the Alpha King. She had told him about Ashenmore. Not everything. Not Vashti's betrayal. Not yet. She wasn't ready to prove her accusations, and without proof, her word meant nothing. But she had told him about the massacre, about Torin, about the mate mark that should have made her untouchable. Kale had listened in silence, and when she finished, he had taken her hand and said simply, "None of that changes what I feel." She didn't deserve him. She knew that, but she was starting to believe she might need him anyway. Found anything? Kale's voice made her jump. He stood in the library doorway, dressed simply in a white shirt and dark trousers, his crown absent. He looked younger without it, more approachable. Maybe. Seren gestured to the book before her. This text mentions healing gifts that can counter curse magic. It says the key is emotional resonance. The healer has to care deeply about the cursed person for the gift to work. Emotional resonance. Kale moved closer, looking over her shoulder. Is that what happened between us? In that chamber? I think so. Seren hesitated. But there's more. The text also says that partially lifting a curse is dangerous. It can destabilize the magic. Make it unpredictable. Kyle's jaw tightened. Unpredictable how? I don't know. The text doesn't specify. She closed the book, frustrated. But I think that's what happened. I tried to help, and instead I might have made things worse. You didn't make things worse. His hand settled on her shoulder, warm and steady. For 2 days, I've felt more alive than I have in years. Whatever you did, it wasn't wrong. She looked up at him. Then why do you still look worried? Something flickered in his eyes. Fear, maybe. Or warning. Because I'm starting to feel things I swore I would never feel again. His thumb traced circles on her shoulder through the fabric of her dress. And every time I look at you, my wolf howls for something I can't give him. What does he want? Kale's gaze dropped to her lips. You know what he wants. The air between them thickened. Seren's wolf stirred, responding to his dominance, his need. For 3 years she had kept her wolf silent. Now it was waking, stretching, reaching toward him with an eagerness that terrified her. Maybe, she whispered, we should stop fighting it. Kale made a sound low in his throat. You don't know what you're saying. I know exactly what I'm saying. She rose from her chair, facing him. I've been running my whole life, hiding, surviving, and I'm tired. She reached up, touching his face. You make me want to stop running. Seren, I know about your curse. I know the risk. Her fingers traced his jaw, his cheekbone, the furrow between his brows. But I also know that I haven't felt this safe since Ashenmore. I haven't felt this alive since before Torin died. And I don't want to lose that because we're both too afraid to reach for it. He caught her hand, holding it against his face. His eyes were silver in the library light, swirling with emotions he couldn't hide. If I let myself love you, he said roughly, and the curse takes you, then at least we'll have had this. She stepped closer. At least we'll have chosen something instead of having everything chosen for us. The words hung between them, and then Kale broke. He kissed her like a man drowning, his arms wrapping around her, lifting her against him. She clung to his shoulders as he carried her to a reading couch, laying her down with a reverence that contradicted his desperation. "Tell me to stop," he gasped against her throat. "Tell me, and I will. Don't stop." He didn't. Hours later, they lay tangled together, the fire burning low. Seren's head rested on his chest, her fingers tracing patterns on his skin. The curse marks were fainter still, barely visible now. "I love you." The words left his lips like a confession. "Gods help me, I love you. I fought it for weeks, but I can't fight anymore." Seren's heart soared, and then Kale's body went rigid. She felt it before she saw it. A cold wave emanating from his skin. A tremor that ran through his muscles. "Kale!" He sat up abruptly, his hand flying to his chest. The curse marks that had faded were blazing now, brighter than ever, spreading across his skin like frost consuming a window. "No." His voice was strangled. "No. No. No." "What's happening?" Seren grabbed his shoulders, but his skin was ice, burning cold beneath her palms. "The curse." He could barely get the words out. His lips were turning blue. "It heard. It knows." He collapsed backward, his body convulsing. Frost crept across his chest, his throat, his face. His heartbeat slowed beneath her palm, growing weaker with every second. "Kyle! Kale!" His eyes found hers, gray going white, losing focus, losing life. "Run," he whispered. "If I die, the curse, it will jump to whoever I—" He couldn't finish. His eyes rolled back, his body went still. And the frost continued to spread, consuming the man she loved while she watched helplessly. Seren screamed. Time fractured. Seren was screaming for help, her voice tearing through the library. Guards burst in. Healers came running. Someone pulled her away from Kyle's frozen body while she fought like a wild thing, her wolf surging to the surface for the first time in 3 years. "Don't touch him! Don't touch him!" But they weren't listening. They were lifting him, carrying him to his chambers, shouting orders she couldn't process. The frost had spread across half his body now, turning his golden skin to pale blue, crystallizing in his hair like a crown of ice. "He's dying," she heard someone say. "The curse. Gods above. The curse has activated." "How?" "He swore he would never—" "It doesn't matter how. Someone find the witch from the northern village. Find anyone who knows curse magic. Now." Seren followed the chaos to Kale's chambers, where they laid him on his massive bed. His chest barely rose. His heartbeat was a whisper, fading with every passing moment. She pushed through the crowd and seized his hand. Ice. Pure ice. As if he were already dead. "Everyone out." Her voice didn't sound like her own. It sounded like the Luna she had been, commanding and absolute. The healers stared at her. "My lady, you can't—" I said out. They fled. Alone with him, Seren climbed onto the bed and pressed both hands against his frozen chest. She closed her eyes and reached for the gift she had suppressed for 3 years. It came reluctantly, sluggishly, like a river that had been dammed too long. "Please," she whispered. "Please, I need you now. He needs you." Warmth flickered in her palms. Golden light, faint but growing. She pushed it into him, felt the curse recoil like a wounded animal. But it wasn't enough. The curse was old, ancient, fed by generations of death and grief. Her untrained gift was a candle against a blizzard. "I can't do this alone," she gasped. I need help." The door opened behind her. "Then perhaps," a familiar voice said, "you should have asked nicely." Seren spun. Vashti stood in the doorway, her beauty terrible in the flickering candlelight. Behind her stood 2 guards, their eyes glazed with compulsion magic. "What are you doing here?" Seren demanded. "Watching you fail." Vashti stepped inside, closing the door. "Just like you failed at Ashenmoor. Just like you failed Torin. Just like you fail everyone who ever trusted you." Seren's wolf snarled. "You did this. You're the one who opened the gates. You're the one who let them slaughter our pack." Finally, Vashti's smile was poison. She figures it out. Only took you 3 years, little sister. Why? The word tore from Seren's throat. We grew up together. We trained together. They were your family too. They were never my family. Vashti's mask cracked, revealing the hatred beneath. I was an orphan they took in out of pity, a charity case. Always second to you, the precious Luna in training with her impossible healing gift. She moved closer, her eyes burning. Do you know what the Shadowfang Pack offered me? Power, status, a place where I would never be second again. All I had to do was open one little gate. Seren's stomach heaved. They killed everyone. Children, elders. Torin. Torin was a bonus. Vashti's voice hardened. He was supposed to be mine. I loved him for years and he never saw me, never looked twice, because he only had eyes for you. She stopped beside the bed, looking down at Kale's frozen form. And now it's happening again. Another powerful alpha. Another man who should have been mine, choosing you instead. This isn't about Kale. Of course it is. Vashti laughed bitterly. Everything is about power, Seren, and you have too much of it. That healing gift of yours. Do you know how rare it is? Do you know how many people would kill to possess it? She reached into her cloak and withdrew a dagger, the blade etched with runes that glowed sickly green. The Shadowfang Witch taught me something interesting, Vashti continued. A healing gift as powerful as yours can be transferred. All it takes is the right ritual and the right blade. She held up the dagger. Your blood, your gift, your life, they'll all be mine. And then I'll heal the Alpha King myself. He'll be so grateful, so broken by losing you that he'll never question where my power came from. Seren's hands tightened on Kale's chest. He'll know. He'll smell the betrayal on you. Will he? Vashti tilted her head. I've hidden my true scent for 3 years. Compulsion magic is wonderfully useful. By the time he realizes the truth, I'll be Luna, and you'll be a distant memory. She raised the dagger, and the door exploded inward. Nell stood in the wreckage, her copper hair wild, her green eyes blazing. But she wasn't alone. Behind her stood Brennan, his scarred face grim, and a dozen guards with weapons drawn. Step away from the queen, Brennan commanded. Vashti's eyes widened. Queen? She's a servant, a nobody. She's the woman our Alpha chose. Brennan moved forward, his sword gleaming. And I may not like her, but I like traitors even less. Vashti's face twisted. She lunged toward Seren with the dagger, but Brennan was faster. His blade caught hers, sending it spinning across the room. 2 guards seized her arms. You can't do this, Vashti screamed. You don't understand. She destroyed Ashenmoor. She killed her own pack. Actually, Nell said calmly, we know exactly what happened at Ashenmoor. The Northern Witch arrived an hour ago. She's been very helpful in revealing the truth. She held up a small crystal vial that glowed with swirling memories. Compulsion magic leaves traces. You should have been more careful. Vashti's face went white. Take her to the cells, Brennan ordered. She'll face the Alpha's justice when he wakes. If he wakes, Seren thought desperately. She turned back to Kyle, whose frost had continued spreading during the confrontation. His lips were blue. His eyelashes were crystallized. The Northern Witch, she said urgently. Where is she? I need her help. An old woman pushed through the crowd, her silver hair braided with raven feathers, her eyes sharp and knowing. She moved to the bed and examined Kale with clinical efficiency. The curse is too deep, she said finally. I cannot break it. There has to be a way. Seren grabbed the woman's arm. Please, I'll do anything. The witch studied her for a long moment. Then her eyes dropped to Seren's shoulder, where the dead mate mark burned beneath her dress. You carry a severed bond, she said slowly. A mate mark from one who died. Yes, Torin. He was killed 3 years ago. And yet the mark remains. The witch's eyes narrowed. That should be impossible. Unless... She reached out and touched Serene's shoulder, her fingers pressing against the mark through the fabric. Heat flared. Golden light exploded from the contact, so bright that everyone in the room shielded their eyes. Seren gasped as power surged through her, wild and untamed, a river finally breaking free of its dam. Gods above, the witch breathed. Your mate, he didn't just die. He transferred his life force into you, his final gift. He knew about your healing power, knew it was incomplete, so he gave you his own essence to make it whole. Tears streamed down Seren's face. Torin, even in death, he had protected her. The power is inside you, the witch continued. It's always been inside you. But you locked it away with your grief, your guilt, your fear. She gripped Seren's shoulders. To save the Alpha King, you must unlock it completely. Let go of everything holding you back. I don't know how. Yes, you do. The witch's voice softened. You've been surviving for 3 years. Now you must choose to live. Seren looked at Kale's frozen face, at the man who had carried her through the snow, who had protected her when he had every reason not to, who had looked at her secrets and loved her more. She thought of Torin, of his final words. Live, Seren, whatever it takes. And she understood. Survival was existing. Living was loving. She had been so afraid of losing again that she had stopped allowing herself to feel. But Kale had broken through those walls, and Torin's gift had been waiting for the moment she was ready to claim it. I choose to live, she whispered, and she let go. The power that erupted from Seren was like nothing the wolves of Valdrin had ever seen. Golden light blazed from her body, filling the chamber, pushing back the darkness. It poured from her hands, her eyes, her very skin, a radiance so pure it hurt to witness. The mate mark on her shoulder blazed white-hot, Torin's final gift merging with her own innate power. She pressed both hands against Kale's frozen chest and pushed. The curse screamed. She could hear it, a voice made of ice and malice, howling in fury as her light invaded its domain. It fought back, clawing at her consciousness, trying to freeze her from the inside out. You cannot win, the curse hissed. I have devoured generations. I have consumed kings. You are nothing. I am everything. Seren's voice resonated with power. I am healer. I am Luna. I am the woman he loves, and I will not let you take him. She pushed deeper. The frost on Kale's skin began to crack. Fissures spread across the ice, golden light bleeding through like dawn breaking through clouds. The curse screamed louder, throwing everything it had against her. Seren felt herself burning. Her gift was consuming her, using more energy than her body could sustain. The witch had warned her this might happen. To fully break a curse this old, she might have to sacrifice herself. But she didn't stop. She thought of Ashenmoor, of the home she had lost. She thought of Taurine, of the mate who had died protecting her. She thought of the 3 years she had spent hiding, shrinking, and pretending to be less than she was. No more. I love you, she gasped, pouring everything into the words. I love you, and I will not let you die. Not now. Not ever. The curse shattered. Golden fire exploded outward, obliterating the ice, burning away centuries of dark magic. Seren felt the moment the curse released its hold, felt Kale's heart stutter, then pound with renewed strength. His eyes flew open. Gray eyes, warm for the first time since she had known him. Warm and alive, and focused entirely on her. Seren. She tried to answer, but her vision was fading. The power was too much. She had given everything, and now there was nothing left. Seren? Seren. She felt herself falling. Strong arms caught her. No. No, you don't get to leave me. Kyle's voice cracked. Not after everything. Not when I just found you. She wanted to tell him it was okay. That saving him was enough. That she had finally stopped running. Finally chosen to live. Even if living meant dying for something that mattered. But words wouldn't come. The last thing she heard was his voice. Desperate and breaking. Don't you dare leave me? That's a royal command. Then darkness. She woke to sunlight. Real sunlight. Warm and golden, streaming through windows that had been thrown open to the spring air. Spring. The winter feast felt like a lifetime ago. She's awake. Nell's voice shrill with relief. Someone get the king. She's awake. Seren tried to sit up and immediately regretted it. Every muscle in her body ached. Her head throbbed. Her throat felt like she had swallowed sand. But she was alive. Easy. Strong hands helped her sit, propping pillows behind her back. She looked up into Kale's face, and her breath caught. He was different. The coldness that had defined him was gone, replaced by a warmth that radiated from his very skin. The curse marks had vanished entirely, leaving smooth, healthy flesh. His eyes, those silver winter eyes, now held flecks of gold. And he was looking at her like she was the sun. You almost died, he said quietly. Your heart stopped 3 times. The healers said there was nothing they could do. His voice cracked. But I refused to accept that. I stayed by your side for 6 weeks, talking to you, begging you to come back. 6 weeks? Seren's voice was a rasp. You've been unconscious for 6 weeks. His hand cupped her face, trembling. I thought I'd lost you. After everything you sacrificed. The curse? Gone. He smiled, and it transformed his entire face. Not just weakened, destroyed. The witch said you burned it out at the root. The bloodline is free. Forever. Seren's eyes filled with tears. She had done it. She had actually done it. And Vashti? Kale's expression hardened. Executed. She confessed everything under truth serum, ash and more. The plot against you, the compulsion magic she used to hide among us. She'll never hurt anyone again. Justice. Finally, after 3 years, justice. There's more, Kale continued. In your honor, I've issued new decrees. Wolves with magical gifts will be welcomed in Valdrin, not feared. The old prejudices are ending. He took her hand, pressing it against his chest where the curse marks used to be. You didn't just save me, Seren. You saved the entire kingdom. I didn't do it for the kingdom. Her voice was soft. I did it for you. He leaned down and kissed her. It was gentle, tender. A promise rather than a demand. When he pulled back, his eyes were bright with emotion. Marry me, he said. Seren blinked. What? Marry me. Be my Luna. Not because of politics or alliances or duty, but because I love you. He pressed his forehead against hers. Because you saw the monster, the curse made me and loved me anyway. Because you sacrificed everything to save me. Because my wolf chose you the moment he found you in that snow, and I trust him more than I've ever trusted anyone. Kale, I know it's fast. I know you've been through trauma I can barely imagine. If you need time, I'll wait. I'll wait forever if that's what it takes. His voice dropped. But I need you to know that you are my choice, my only choice, now and always. Seren looked at this man who had found her at her lowest, protected her when she had nothing to offer, and loved her when she was certain she was unlovable. She thought of Torin, of his final gift, and she knew he would want this for her. He had died, so she could live. Really live. Yes, she whispered. Kale's face lit up like sunrise. Yes, he repeated, as if he couldn't believe it. Yes, I'll marry you. Yes, I'll be your Luna. Yes, I'll spend the rest of my life driving the elders crazy and giving you airs and arguing with you about politics. She laughed, tears streaming down her face. Yes to all of it. He kissed her again, deeper this time, and she felt their wolves howling in harmony. The wedding took place on the first day of summer. Seren stood before the gathered pack, dressed in gold and white, her dark hair crowned with wild flowers. The mate mark on her shoulder had transformed, Torin's gift now intertwined with a new mark. Kale's mark, 2 bonds merged into something unprecedented. Kale stood beside her, resplendent in silver and black, his silver-gold eyes never leaving her face. He looked happy, genuinely, purely happy in a way that still startled everyone who had known him before. Do you, Seren of Ashenmoor, take Kael of Valdren as your mate, your alpha, your king? The elder intoned. I do. And do you, Kael of Valdren, take Seren of Ashenmoor as your mate, your Luna, your queen? I do. His voice carried across the assembly, strong and sure. Now and forever. The bite came next. His fangs sank into her shoulder, completing the bond, and Seren felt their souls snap together like two halves of a whole. The crowd erupted in howls of celebration. Later, at the feast, Seren watched the wolves of Valdren dancing and laughing and celebrating. She saw Brennan, who had become one of her strongest allies, spinning a laughing knell across the floor. She saw former servants elevated to positions of honor, their magical gifts finally recognized. She saw a kingdom transformed. Happy? Kael murmured in her ear, his arms wrapped around her from behind. More than I ever thought possible. Good. His lips brushed her temple. Because this is just the beginning. She turned in his arms, facing him. The beginning of what? Everything. His smile was warm, his eyes bright. I spent 10 years surviving. Now I want to live. He kissed her softly. With you. Seren thought of the woman she had been 6 months ago, freezing in the snow, certain she would die alone and forgotten. She thought of the journey that had brought her here, the pain and the fear, and the impossible love that had bloomed in the darkest winter. She had been running her whole life. Now she was home. I love you, she said. I love you too. Kael pulled her close. My Luna, my queen, my everything. Outside, the first stars appeared in the summer sky. Inside, the wolves of Valdren celebrated their king and queen, their future bright with possibility. And somewhere, in a realm beyond sight, a wolf named Torin watched over them both, finally at peace, knowing his sacrifice had not been in vain. His beloved had stopped surviving. She had finally learned to live. Thank you for listening to this story. If you enjoyed it and would like to support the channel, hit the subscription button. Let me know what you thought in the comments below. I always read them, and they mean more than you know. Until next time.